Dr. Kimbro. Doc, let me ask you this. What did some of those guys say in class? And the only reason I know because I study you, and I know you had Matumbo, you had a couple others. Talk a little bit about that. Go a little bit about that. What did Ti say? What did some of those guys say when they came and talked to your class?
Oh man, they just come and they just bring it. And really, I started going global with that because at my MBA class, I came up with this idea, take a millionaire to lunch. Actually, it was my wife's idea and a few other folks. And she said, man, you ought to bring, some of the folks you interviewed in the class. And I said, Pat, that's a great idea, man. And so I got a sponsor, for the lunch. And I was doing it like every 3 weeks at the MBA level. Well, at the undergrad level, because I got 50 million students, I couldn't do it all the time because of the sponsorship for the lunch and this, that, and everything. So I would make sure that I would close out that academic year with it. And they would just come in, and I would always have one of my students who would greet them, another student who would introduce them, and another student who would conduct the Q&A. And I said, you just come in, break bread with us, and tell my kids what they need to know. Mm-hmm. I had, and arguably, I had over the course that I've done this, more than 60. And I only had like maybe I only had like maybe 2 or 3 repeats because they've been so good. Well, I had the owner, Edwin Peskowitz, the owner of the Hawks and the owner of the Thrashers hockey team. Yeah, he spoke in my class. So I prepped my students and I said, all right, don't embarrass me. You got Mr. Edwin Peskowitz come up here, and they know they got to be booted and suited and all that. And I said, you go online and you find out anything and everything about this man. And so he comes in there. First thing he does, grabs and he came in, he brought his team. He brought about 5 folks with him. He brought his vice president of communication with him. And they all broke bread, that we had sandwiches and the like, and they sat down. And then it was time for him to speak. And he grabs the mic. And don't you know, the first thing he says, all right, what's my mission statement?
Ooh.
I had about 2 or 3 students up in that class and recite his mission statement verbatim to him. He reached into his pocket, pulled out tickets to an upcoming Atlanta Hawks game right there on the front row. We're talking Spike Lee, Beyonce seats on the same row as the team. And he did the same thing. He said, what's my vision statement? I had a couple of students who recited the vision statement, and he gave them the same seats too. Then I had a guy by the name of Roosevelt Adams. Roosevelt Adams, he handles all the food service for a number of HBCUs. And he banked like Hank. And he told my students, I can come in here and I can give you the keys to the kingdom. I could tell you everything you need to know about success. But you know what? That wouldn't be enough. Sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time. And I didn't even know it. But he got to my classroom before I did. Let me show you how these guys think. He got to the classroom before I did, and under 3 or 4 seats in my classroom, he scotch taped $20 bills. And when he said that, I looked around and said, what's this guy talking about? Sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time. And I'm going to tell you right now, Dr. Kimbro, you got some students right now that are in the right place at the right time if they would only look under their seat. And I heard these students got up, look, and they were just screaming left and right. And I told them, I said, come on down, man. What did you learn from this exercise? And they told Roosevelt Adams. Roosevelt Adams, what they learned. So it's that type of experiential learning. Mm-hmm. Experiential learning. And just like Matumbo, he said, I played 14 years in the NBA. Yeah, and I still got about the bulk of my earnings with me. And he said, some of my teammates aren't doing well. They call me the first time, I give them money. But they call me the second time, I don't give them money, I give them a book. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kimbro, I give them your book because many times that has been the hook. When I hear that these guys have read my book, I call them up and I said, look, man, all right, so you read, that's how I got hold of Steve Harvey when the place where my wife was getting her hairstyle, the receptionist, the owner came and introduced my wife to the receptionist and said, her husband is, you may have heard of her husband. And so, yeah, well, as soon as I got here, Mr. Harvey gave me your husband's book and told me to read. I said, my wife came home and told me this story. I said, what? And I got on the phone and I said, God, come speak to my students. All right, so you got the book. Now these, and I, and sometimes I got to shame the hip hoppers. Like T.I., come on, man, they worship you guys and you won't come back. No, I'm not having it. Get in here. And so, but arguably, one of the better ones, they were all great, was Janetta Patton, Usher Raymond's mother. And, during the Q&A, one of my students says, what's the toughest thing you've ever done? And Usher's mother said, the toughest thing I've ever done? She said, yeah, what's the toughest thing you've ever done? And she said, learning to be the only Black female in a room of wealthy white males. Case in point, she said, every contract that my son has signed, I negotiated, including part ownership of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yep.
Negotiation 101. There are 6 different forms of negotiation, and number 6 is always win-win. You win-win or you walk away. And what do we mean by walk away? It's called the law of non-resistance. What's the most powerful element in the world? The most powerful element in the world is water, because water is completely non-resistant. Water seeks its own level. You can splash water, you can step on water, but that one slow drop of water will wear away a rock, will wear away cement. That constant, steady drop. So you do the same thing. You be non-resistant. If it's not for you. Now, what is the number one form of resistance? Win-lose. And you are going to see win-lose right now, okay? The Cabo 6. Those individuals who went to Mexico with their girlfriend and for some indiscretion, which is utter nonsense. They asked me, Dr. Kimbro, if you were with them, what would you tell them? Fear not. The highest form is love. What can we learn from that young girl at the University of Kentucky who was the dorm director, and that white student comes in there inebriated, drunk, and 50 million times calls her the N-word and the B-word. And what did that young child do? She did nothing. She said, no, I'm sorry, and just kept doing blah, 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 and this, that, and everything. Well, the pushback that she received and her mother received, you should have done something. You should have fought back and blah, blah, blah. Well, that child did fight back. Because she was fighting back with love, you didn't recognize it. You wanted her to fight back with her fists. You wanted her to fight back with her words. You wanted to go ahead and grab something and hit